We are live. We're officially live. Live Wine About It to talk about these absolutely ridiculous penalties for Hendrick Motorsports and Denny Hamlin levied down by NASCAR today. I got to pull up exactly what these penalties are because I couldn't believe it when you and I just recorded Stacking Denny's last night, and we were under the impression that they definitely weren't going to penalize Hamlin. Now, Hendrick, they might have got something, but we were under the impression, this did not affect the cars enough to lay down this type of penalty that NASCAR gave to Hendrick Motorsports. So Hendrick was fined. Where's this at? Okay, all four Hendrick Motorsports teams and the 31 team, so of Colleague Racing, which would be Justin Haley, all lost 100 team and driver points, which is an exception of Chase Elliott because he did not race, and 10 playoff points. Crew chiefs are suspended for 4 races and fined $100,000. Denny Hamlin fined $50,000 and docked 25 points. We talked about this. He intentionally took out Ross Chastain. He cleared
took out. Honestly, took out is a strong word. He didn't take him out. Yeah. I would say even. He slowed him up. Significantly slowed him up, but I wouldn't say he took him out. Russ took himself out. I know we're going to get to that, but just frustration at a lot of levels for me on this one. But keep going.
Yeah, which one do you want to start with? That's the question.
I think we got to save I think we got to save the Denny Hamlin one for last because I'm going to just go off on that one. So.
Okay. I was shocked to see those penalties today, says Matthew. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
These are so unexpected. We have to do this. I messaged Nick earlier and I was like, we have to jump on a live stream if you're available because this is too big not to talk about this. So Hendrick Motorsport, this is a huge penalty. This takes Alex Bowman from the lead in points down to like 24th, I think Pacris said. And the biggest part is the 10 playoff points. I mean, that's huge.
That's ridiculous. That's monstrous.
And
it's 2 race wins. That is 2 race wins. And if we think nobody's going to win like more than 5 races, that is a big penalty. It's one thing if you're Harvick and you have 9 wins and you take away 2 and it's 7. And even then Harvick didn't make the final 4 that year. So this is a monstrous penalty to all of Hendrick Motorsports in the playoff. Like you said, the playoff points is a big part of this, more so than the regular season because Byron's already in. All the Hendrick drivers are probably going to get in, with the exception of maybe Chase Elliott, but he wasn't involved in this penalty. So
exactly. Now
Bowman's had a stellar year. This might hurt Bowman more than Larson just because Larson has bigger upside. He'll probably grab a win.
You know what this actually, I could see people twisting this into just looking at the situation as a whole. If Hendrick goes out and let's say, Larson wins 2 races and Bowman wins 2 races before the start of the playoffs, all of a sudden this penalty in a very weird way benefited Chase Elliott because he now doesn't have to face those. It's in a very weird way. I'm not trying to twist.
I follow your logic. I totally follow your logic.
Because he didn't get these. Yeah. He's in the field with everybody else. But, now the big thing is, obviously, I think Hendrick is going to bring this to appeals. But do they with the 9 team? Because do you just let Gustafson, take these 4 races off and be ready when Chase actually comes back? Because supposedly Chase Elliott's coming back in, 5 races.
If you appeal one, you have to appeal all if you're Hendrick Motorsports because it's the same penalty levied to all of them as far as the team level, right? Mm-hmm. It's the same team level penalty assessed to all 4 teams within Hendrick Motorsports, all 4 cars, all 4, whatever you want to call them, entities. So if you're Hendrick Motorsports, you can't appeal 3 of them, but not the 4th one because then you're basically admitting you're trying to game the system. And whether they were trying to game the system or not, you can't admit it with one car but not the others. Even if you weren't, even though you're claiming you're not admitting it, you're still leaving one of them off. So Hendrick Motorsports has to appeal all 4 or none of the 4 in this. And here's the thing. This is the most significant monetary fine at one time to a single team in NASCAR history. The previous biggest monetary fine was Michael Waltrip Racing in the big 2013, playoff scandal, something like that. And then the demise of Michael Waltrip Racing, part of it was the sponsors pulling out and they weren't a big enough established team. This is not going to be the demise of Hendrick Motorsports. Let's just be clear about that. I've seen some talk about that on Twitter. This is not a Michael Waltrip Racing level deal. First of all, $300,000 10 years ago is not $400,000 right now, potentially. I actually don't know. I haven't done the math on the inflation, but you get the point. There is some inflation there, which might make it neutral. And also, Hendrick Motorsports is a massively more monstrous organization than Michael Waltrip Racing ever was and ever would have been. So we're not in a situation where it's going to be the end of Hendrick Motorsports. So any talk about that needs to just stop.
Yeah. I mean, Rick Hendrick is worth $1 billion with a B.
Yes.
This is pocket change to him. But I'm still stuck on the fact that NASCAR didn't take these parts. They let them practice with them. Like, this makes no sense to me at all. If it is that level of cheating that you are levying this kind of penalty toward them, why the hell did you let them practice with it? Why didn't you take them right away? I'm still going to go back to that, and it just makes no sense to me.
No, it makes no sense at all. And I think the first line of Hendrick Motorsports appeal, like the I'm trying to find the exact wording here, so just bear with me a moment because we're kind of doing this on the fly live. But Hendrick Motorsports, the first word of their appeal, or the first bullet point of their appeal, is the fact that they were provided these parts from a single supplier, and they are not the parts they were provided weren't even in spec with what NASCAR requires. So I don't know if they necessarily admit to modifying them, but they're basically saying that we modified these to get into compliance is what I'm kind of reading between the lines. So louvers provided to teams through NASCAR's mandated single source. So NASCAR is mandating they get these louvers from this one place, single source supplier, do not match the design submitted by the manufacturer we're getting these from. Now, I admitted I added getting these from, but submitted by the manufacturer and approved by NASCAR. So Hendrick Motorsports is basically saying the parts NASCAR is forcing us to have was modified already. So to me, their argument is we just tried to modify them back because NASCAR says they were modified. Or maybe their argument is they were already modified and that wasn't our doing. I don't really know. It seems honestly, it does seem kind of weird that it only happened to the Hendrick cars. Plus, we should add Justin Haley.
Nobody's talking about that.
Which is weird that it's one of the two Kaulig cars, not both, right? So it's that's a little weird as well. Like, why would it just be one of the Kaulig cars? Why wouldn't they both do this thing just like all four Hendrick cars did? I feel like there has to be like here, the Chevy teams get this, and Hendrick grabbed them, and then Kaulig grabbed them, and they're like, I legitimately believe Hendrick Motorsports' argument, and even if they modified them, I kind of believe that they modified them to try to get them back into alignment with what NASCAR, said needs to be legal for the design that was submitted by the manufacturer. I don't know, but I feel like the bullet point 2 and 3 of Hendrick Motorsports here. So bullet point 2 is documented, inconsistent, and unclear communications by the sanctioning body related to louvers, which to me honestly kind of falls on Hendrick Motorsports, because while NASCAR may have unclear communication and documentation and whatever, at the same time, you still have to stay within the rules, whether they're unclear or not. I don't really think that's an argument. I'm not saying it's a fault of Hendrick. I just don't really think it's an argument. But bullet point number 3 that they submitted: recent comparable penalties issued by NASCAR have been related to issues discovered during a post-race inspection. And I think this is the other part that you and I are frustrated with, is this was not only pre-race, not only pre-qualifying, this was pre-practice.
Yeah.
And I understand NASCAR has a rule that the cars need to be under spec when they come into the racetrack for the weekend, even before practice. I understand that. But I don't think that level of penalty is warranted for that before the car ever hits the track. Hendrick Motorsports was not trying to, even if they were, let's say they were cheating, they voluntarily went for inspection before practice. This was a voluntary inspection. Per Bob Pockris, NASCAR identified louvers on our race cars from, so a quote of Hendrick. Bob Pockris tweeting this: NASCAR identified louvers on our race cars during a voluntary inspection 35 minutes after the opening of the garage and prior to on-track activity, which means practice. So Hendrick voluntarily did the inspection process, and got caught with this. I can't say red-handed because I don't even necessarily think they know they got caught red-handed. It blows my mind that NASCAR would levy such monstrous penalties. I can see a small penalty for being like, hey, you got these bad parts, you should have notified us. I cannot see you deserve one of the biggest penalties in modern NASCAR history because you got bad parts from our supplier and didn't notify us.
I mean, this is a more severe penalty than you were talking about Michael Waltrip Racing before. It's more severe penalty than putting jet fuel in the fuel. Like, this is insane. And Pockris actually tweeted out that they had to issue swift and big penalties to keep respect in the garage. Any fairness issues will be determined on appeal. So from what I'm reading with that, Pockris definitely thinks that they're going to take these penalties down a notch and that they were just trying to send a message. That I could kind of understand. I don't know, because you're still putting a black eye on the sport here. You're still, the organization that's been dominating the last 2 weeks has been cheating, and we're gonna levy them a penalty, but we're gonna give them a slap on the wrist at the end of the day. Respecting the garage, my ass.
Yeah, it's frustrating because at this point, like, Hendrick has had the best cars. Hendrick Motorsports has had the best cars all season. So are you trying to imply they've been doing this all year? Are you, all 4 races so far? Like, what is the implication here from this penalty? It's one of those things where we don't know. NASCAR doesn't know, or not NASCAR doesn't. The NASCAR fans don't know, and you and I don't know. So, like, I don't understand. Is NASCAR penalizing Hendrick not just for this race, but the fact that they've dominated this year? There's no question Hendrick has been the best team this year. That's not a question. So is this a way to nerf that? Is this a way to make things more competitive? I don't know. I'm not questioning NASCAR's motives on, like, we need to make the competition more equal. I'm questioning whether the severity of the penalty is in relation to, we think this has been going on more than one race. That's my question. I don't think NASCAR thinks, like, we need to nerf teams. Well, because I probably worded that pretty badly. But my question is NASCAR, and I'm sure NASCAR will say no, but as a fan, as an outside spectator, I question whether this is in response to just a single race Or do they think this has been going on a lot longer and a lot of that will come out on appeal, whether it has or hasn't, and this whole deal? Because I truly legitimately believe, especially the colleague part, like, why would one colleague car have this and not the other? I truly specifically believe this was like just some weird shit that happened. And it's like, it's almost like, you know, we pick things out of box and you and I were the first 5 to pick it. So like, of course we'll pick the 5 that are closest together or look the best or whatever. I don't know. And I just feel like, I feel like that's what happened.
Mm-hmm. There's a comment on here. The team in NASCAR were aware that the parts didn't fit properly, but they also told the teams not to change them. So what are you supposed to do? You can't sit there and just say we had bad parts, because you're going to get accused of it anyway. Like I feel like Hendrick's hands are tied here. So
yeah, I honestly don't know enough about that or that situation to have an opinion there. It's a very good comment and a very good point, and it is also helpful to Hendrick if that is a true point. And I have no reason to doubt that. I think our commenters here are absolutely doing the most accurate reporting or representation they can. I just don't know. There's no way to know, and even the things we've seen, there's no way to know what is going on here. You and I have no idea, but I think the whole point is the fact that we have no idea. Everybody else that's watching here has no idea. And the fact that the one thing we know is those louvers made 0 impact on the qualifying session and 0 impact on the race. So for the fact that this is a bigger penalty monetarily to Hendrick Motorsports than Michael Waltrip Racing for literally manipulating the outcome of a championship, the playoffs, makes no sense whatsoever. And there's a reason we're whining about it, because it's absolute bullshit. It is bullshit. There's 0 reason this penalty should be as big or bigger than Michael Waltrip Racing's penalty. And I understand that Michael Waltrip Racing penalty involved 3 cars, so it's $300,000. This is 4 cars and it's $400,000. So it's like the exact same penalty. Mm-hmm. I do not get this, especially because the Michael Waltrip Racing cars not only took the track, they did this in the very end of a race, the last few laps of a race. The Hendrick Motorsports cars, not only did they not race with these things, they didn't qualify. All they did was practice with them, and guess what we saw? The practice with them didn't affect their race or qualifying speed, because they were fast as shit in race and qualifying trim as well. So I do not understand this penalty whatsoever, especially the severity of it. Mm-mm. So it's honestly, it makes me angry, and it doesn't. The crime does not fit the punishment, and I think we're gonna have this theme throughout this little session.
Yeah, one of the things that, there's kind of some comments back and forth here going on is the impact of crew chiefs being suspended over these next 4 races, and actually losing them. Does it actually matter? Because basically, like, you can be on both sides of the fence here, and I have been for many times that this has happened, because when a crew chief is suspended, they're not actually suspended. They're just not at the racetrack. They're right. Still working with the team. Yes. But
at the same time, crew chiefs still matter because we're high on Blake Harris, right?
Exactly. Yes. So
there's a little bit of a back and forth of like, crew chiefs matter. They obviously matter, but I think they matter a lot more in the input of how the car is set up, what the race strategy is going into the race. There's a lot of live calls, don't get me wrong, and I think Blake Harris probably has as a crew chief, a good effect on the race calls, but he also had a big effect on a positive direction on Martin Truex Jr., Kurt Busch, Michael McDowell, even before race strategy even mattered going into the tracks, because he was a crew chief for Michael McDowell, but he was a car chief or an engineer in some cases and had little to no influence on race strategy, and he's still good. So I think it does matter that these crew chiefs are missing for 4 races, but I don't think it matters a whole ton. I think the strategy is largely thought out ahead of time.
Exactly. And I even think the base setups are already set for these cars.
Yeah. Performance-wise, I don't think there's an issue. I think it's mostly on strategy.
Yeah.
And even then, I don't think it's that much.
Yeah. And, 4 races is a month. It's a completely different scenario if you're losing them for a year. So, this comment here, Hendrick Performance could suffer this next month without their crew chiefs, but even a small step back means they only win 2 of the next 4, which is absolutely right. They are ridiculously fast right now. But the other penalty of it, the other side of this is Denny Hamlin and his little dust up with Ross Chastain. We all saw it. NASCAR themselves tweeted out the in-car cameras, and then Denny got on his podcast, which, ironically is called Actions Detrimental to Racing, which is the rule that they pulled on him for this penalty. And he said, yeah, I roughed up Chastain on purpose, and it all stems back to
you're right, but roughing up is not. I know you agree, and I know I'm interrupting, and this is what I do. This is who I am. I interrupt. I just get agitated and frustrated, and roughing up is different than what Bubba Wallace did. And you and I talked about this not live, but on our actual Stacking Denny's recording. We talked about this is different than the Bubba Wallace Kyle Larson deal. This is different than the Matt Kenseth Joey Logano deal, even though it was at a short track. This is different than a lot of deals here where the intent was not just to wreck somebody, but to knock the shit out of them, put them out of the race, spin them out, cause mayhem or significant damage. This was just I'm just going to get up in here and kind of just, rough them up, which is what you said. Mm-hmm. Rough them up. Rough them up is different than fuck them up, in my opinion. That's my opinion. I'm so mad. I am legitimately mad. I was disappointed to be a NASCAR fan today. That's how mad I am.
Because now all of a sudden you can't, drivers can't do anything, and they definitely can't say anything. This once again puts all these drivers back into this damn cardboard box cutout of they can't have an opinion. They can't talk about anything because NASCAR doesn't want, you know what? You need the drama to bring in fans. Fans want the drama.
It's how F1 survives right now from their damn TV show or whatever it is. They love it. People eat that shit up. That's a good thing for NASCAR. And if you're going to nerf that to the point where drivers have to be vanilla as fuck, that doesn't do anything for you. I totally get the competition aspect of it. I do. I really, truly do. Because we don't want a Michael Waltrip Racing of manipulating the competition. That was 100% manipulation. Denny Hamlin's not sitting here manipulating the outcome of a championship, blah, 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 blah. To the point where you and I on Stacking Denny's said, at most, it's going to cost Ross Chastain 1 to 2 play. And that was actually my argument for why Denny should have done it, was it might cost him 1 to 2 playoff points tops. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's a severe manipulation of the outcome of the championship to, whatever. It's just, you're going to have to start penalizing everything. Why aren't they penalizing Ross Chastain? Why aren't they penalizing Ross Chastain? We all saw the in-car that NASCAR themselves tweeted out. Ross legitimately slams on the brakes right in front of Denny Hamlin, and Denny has absolutely nowhere to go other than slam him in the back. That's not on Denny. That's on Ross. That's 100% on Ross. And that's also a 100% violation of the 100% rule that NASCAR at least used to have. I don't know if it's still in effect. I don't know if it's still in the rule book. I'm not a NASCAR employee, but there absolutely was a time where a 100% rule was in effect. So if Ross is slamming on the brakes to cause contact with a competitor, to go backward, to have his competitor go backward, how is that not a penalty? Because it's the same thing Denny Hamlin did, except instead of slamming on the brake, Denny Hamlin let go of the wheel.
It has to be because Denny admitted to it.
But that's the point. So now you're nerfing what a personality can say or do for the sport. So as you said, you're cutting their hand off. You're nerfing them. You're whatever the words are. I'm a math guy. I don't have good words. You're fucking your growth.
Yeah.
You're fucking your entertainment value. You're fucking your entertainment level. You're fucking the information that people get from this as a fan. Because you know what Denny's never going to do again? This. He's never going to provide potentially controversial things. Never going to do that ever again. I can guarantee that he's not going to do that.
And honestly, I bet it affects his podcast, what he says on there too.
That's what I'm saying. Like he's not going to potentially offer controversial opinions on his podcast.
Oh, I thought you were talking on track.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean on the podcasts, and I know he says in his tweet. Let me pull up Denny Hamlin's tweet because he did tweet about.
I wish I could see that.
It's good. He says, "I won't be making an appeal to NASCAR. However, I will be making an appeal to the people. I'll see you next Monday." And then hashtag ADDH, which is actions detrimental Denny Hamlin. So he is going to make an appeal to the people, but not to NASCAR. So and I'm not criticizing Denny here. He's letting NASCAR win because NASCAR is going to win here. There's no doubt about that. But it is not a good move for NASCAR from a marketing perspective.
Boom, right here. You see that comment on there? These drivers are providing free marketing and publicity in more spaces than ever before, trying to expand viewership, and NASCAR penalizes it. NASCAR doesn't want them. They want the Chase Elliott's that he has one tweet a month.
The problem is that's not going to last. You know why Chase Elliott is so popular? Because of his dad.
I honestly have no idea why.
Because of his dad.
It doesn't make any sense.
You know why Dale Jr. is so popular? And part of it is Dale Jr. A lot of it is Dale Jr. But even before we knew how awesome Dale Jr. was, you know why he was popular? Because of his dad. If we had some other amazingly, like if Jeff Gordon had a kid and was racing full-time in NASCAR right now, that guy would be, popular. I mean, Jeff Gordon does have kids, but you get my point. If he was racing full-time in NASCAR right now, that guy would be popular too. And it's because NASCAR is still, by and large, a boomer sport. You and I love it.
Accurate.
The people we speak to love it. But we're not necessarily the exception to the rule, but we're not the audience that needs to be grown. But the audience that needs to be grown is the audience that's younger than us. That's younger than you and I. I'm 39. I grew up watching Jeff Gordon. It was my favorite driver. I grew up watching Dale Earnhardt. Grew up watching Bill Elliott. But the people younger than you and I did not. And it is not okay for NASCAR to nerf the opinions and thoughts of the drivers right now, because the current state of where things live in our world, think about TikTok, think about Instagram. I'm old. I'm so old that I'm not on TikTok or Instagram. I think I might have one default account on each, simply because I don't want people to be like creating a fake Rotodoc account and, making up bullshit about me or whatever. So I've saved all that aside for historical purposes, but I don't use those. But guess who does? Everybody else younger than me, or at least everybody else. I know you use Instagram and TikTok. I don't. I think I've touched them both once ever, maybe. But you do, and I know people younger than you do. So this is where NASCAR is heading. And if you can't appeal to that group, simply because podcasts, same thing. If Denny Hamlin cannot give his thoughts and opinions to these kinds of social medias, That's not good for NASCAR. That's not good at all.
No, because it's the future of how people get information. We're seeing that transition right now. There's a good book I like. It's by Eric Bischoff, who used to run. You remember the old wrestling days, WCW versus WWF?
Yep.
Okay, the book is called Controversy Creates Cash, and it is so true. Like, it is the thought that he used to grow WCW to where it was. And NASCAR needs to read this book 50 times to understand that this is exactly what this sport needs. Is you need rivalry. I mean, think about it. We had Dale Earnhardt versus Jeff Gordon for all those years. We need that. What do we have right now? What rivalry do we have right now? There's never any talk about a rivalry. This didn't even get mentioned on the broadcast.
Denny versus Ross is the biggest rivalry right now. And honestly, this was the perfect way to settle that rivalry. That's what NASCAR needs. NASCAR needed this. They needed the perfect way to settle a rivalry that's been around for a year. The biggest rivalry they've had over the last year. They needed it to be settled in this way. And they said, no, thanks.
Yeah. Nope, we can't.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. NASCAR's strategy of growth doesn't make any sense. That's what doesn't make sense here, and neither do these penalties.
You know what else doesn't make sense? Look, they penalize Denny Hamlin almost just as much, 5 points, but almost as much as they penalized Noah Gragson, who wrecked the whole fucking field at Road America. And your point about Bubba Wallace, your point about Bubba Wallace, that's not a guaranteed points penalty. Yes, he potentially could have lost 60 points, but he also could have lost 1 point.
Yeah.
So there's no guaranteed penalty there with Bubba, whereas at least Noah and Denny had guaranteed penalties. But Noah Gragson intentionally hooked a dude instead of the right rear, because we're on a oval, a left rear on a road course, but on the main straight of the road course in front of the whole field, and wrecked 8, 9, 12 cars. I lost count at that point because cars were flipping. Everybody was damaged. There was a car literally carrying a signboard all the way around the track. That's how far the wreck took itself with the Noah Gragson wreck on Sage Karam last year at Road America. Joey Logano straight up dumped William Byron for the win at Darlington last year. There's no doubt that was intentional. What Denny Hamlin did was way less egregious than that. It's not close. But Denny Hamlin admitted to it. So you're going to penalize that? Ross Chastain hasn't admitted to brake checking. Joey Logano didn't admit to, intentionally wrecking William Byron. There's so many things that haven't been intentionally admitted that didn't go penalized. The point is, NASCAR is now saying you cannot intentionally admit what you've done, but do it on the down low. I don't think that's a good look.
Honestly, I think this puts the power back in Denny Hamlin's hands, because you know what? Like, any interview that he does, if I was him, I'd be sitting there saying, well, at least I have the guts to admit what I did.
Here's the thing. You and I both love when a driver's honest, and I know you and I have both criticized when a driver lies through his teeth about what he did or didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you and I both respect the hell out of what Denny said this week.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. He has the guts to admit what he did. It makes me a bigger fan of Denny.
And it actually does. And which is completely different from a year ago.
From where you were a couple years ago. Yeah.
And now all of a sudden I'm a Denny Hamlin fan.
Yeah. And it has nothing to do with the bet. Like the last, obviously we won the bet, the Coca-Cola 600. We were betting on Denny Hamlin. But like this actually, because you talk about how Chase Elliott's so vanilla, or this driver's so vanilla, or that driver's so vanilla.
Exactly why I like Kyle Busch all those years.
Exactly. And Denny's just spitting it straight, telling it like it is. And NASCAR's like, no. And here's the thing. Denny would never have been penalized had he not said this on his podcast. We both know that. So if NASCAR wasn't going to penalize him in the moment, why are they penalizing him for talking about it?
I don't get it. Going back to Harvick and Elliott, didn't Harvick say he was specifically going to get Chase Elliott back?
Yes.
Didn't he call his shot? And he did at the road course, right? The road.
Oh, he did. Yeah.
Why
and
no
he
penalty?
did. And then he thought Elliott was going to get him back to the point where he drove himself into the wall, which I thought was poetic justice. But 100%, Lucas is a gajillion percent right. Harvick literally said he was going to get Chase Elliott back. And we remember like the happy Christmas and Merry New Year, whatever the fuck line it was from Chase Elliott. Because that was after that Charlotte Roval race where Harvick tried to get him back and didn't and crashed because of the Bristol deal. Harvick literally admitted he was going to intentionally hit him back and then did. And guess what NASCAR did? While it was in the playoffs, not a regular season fucking race.
It was the playoffs.
Not in a regular season fucking race where they cost each other 10 spots, maybe. 1 playoff point, 2 playoff points, maybe. I mean, this was a much more bigger deal. And the inconsistency of NASCAR, you can see it, you can hear it. I'm so frustrated. I was legitimately disappointed to be a NASCAR fan today. I love NASCAR. I love IndyCar. I was thanking my lucky stars I had college basketball today because IndyCar is on a month-long break and NASCAR made me feel miserable today as a fan. And that's where I am. I did not feel excited to be a NASCAR fan today. I was legitimately disappointed. My heart was racing. I wouldn't say shaking, but I felt the anxiety of being a NASCAR fan because I was frustrated. And that's not a good place to be.
No. But that's where we're at, and we'll see where Denny Hamlin's not appealing his penalty, but Hendrick is appealing theirs, as is Colleague Racing. But we're going to wrap this up. We've been on here for a bit, and I'm sure we'll have more to talk about next week with stacking Denny's. And I can't believe any of this, but thank you guys for tuning in. Those that listed your comments, and
sorry if I went way too off, but
we're frustrated.
I'm very, 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 very frustrated as a NASCAR fan today. I love NASCAR. I will never stop watching it. Give me 1,000 miles every week, but I'm very frustrated.
Agreed. Yeah. All right. See you guys.